Y'all, it's Hope here from Crafty Hope, and welcome. I am back with 3 more of my mini assemblages for the 100-day project. This time I'm showing you numbers 74, 76, and 88. This one is 74. I don't know if you saw that, but I had already stacked up a couple pieces of fabric, and so I pulled that apart and decided that that back piece really needed some texture. And this is just, it looks like it's a, what do you call it, flour sack towel from the Dollar Tree that I was using kind of as a paint rag in the craft room. So I've got some light colored embroidery floss. It's kind of a pinky beige. And I'm going to slow stitch the whole thing. I am not going to show you all of the slow stitching. I'm just showing you my method as I go up one side, and then we'll skip ahead to where it is done. So it's a really simple process of just doing an up and down stitch. So that is that first row. I will turn it and start again from the bottom, and that is what it looks like when it is done. It adds a lot of great texture. So I've got this piece of rust-dyed fabric. I think it's an old sheet of some kind. It's an interesting material. So it is a little bit bigger than I want for that, and I will tear it down. I do love the frayed edges. So if I can get a piece to rip and tear, that is what I'm going to use. Now that other little piece that's stacked on top, I believe it is something from some, I don't know. I'm thinking it's from some vintage doll clothes that I found that were pretty ratty. And I had on my desk a stash of buttons and the little things that come out of a stash of buttons sitting on my desk. And in it were a couple of these, what do you call it? Needle threaders. One of them was broken. So I just cut off those little wires that on the end of it because they were super pokey in its broken state. And and I turned that because I felt like all that rust along the edge of that felt better as a weight at the bottom of that. So it felt heavier, so it needed to go at the bottom. And I picked this up and looked at it for a long time. I kind of did not, I don't know. I didn't really want to work with that in the exact center of it. And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe I'll combine it with something else. Yeah, so I moved it over there to that left side. And now I pulled in, that is a rusty old straight pin. That's all that is. And I decided, okay, well, we'll add a button to this. So I pulled out a big jar of shank buttons I had and thought, okay, well, maybe this one. And I look at it, it was just too dark, and I knew it would be kind of floppy. So I pull in another jar of buttons, and these are hold buttons. And I decided, no, that's not going to work. What I want was something small, and I had a little bag. I think from those buttons I had just sorted, and it had this one little glass button on it. So I thought, oh, that is a pretty little thing. So I've got those taller parts on the sides, and then I'll have this small button in the middle. So first I wanted to attach all my things together. So I will use Fabri-Tac to stick that rusty piece to that slow stitched piece. And granted, I took the time to slow stitch that whole piece of fabric, and you won't see but the edges of it, but it just gives it a little more stability, I suppose. And then there's that piece of other vintage fabric that will also get some Fabri-Tac on it. And I've got that straight pin, and I was trying to decide the best way to attach it because it's just a straight pin. Gluing it would be weird. So I thought, well, what if I just use it as a pen and go through? And I was trying to do everything I could not to poke myself because it is old and rusty, and who knows what kind of old stuff is on it that I didn't want to poke myself with. So from there, I needed to stick down my needle threader, and so I've got E6000, which is a bit of overkill. Some tacky glue or something like that probably would have worked, but my E6000 is always super handy. So I am putting that down, and then I don't know if you saw a minute ago, I tested my needle to make sure it would go through that button. So off camera, I threaded my needle and tied a knot. Tied a knot in it, and now I'm just gonna sew on this button in a I think I'm gonna go through it twice, so, and then I will tie it off on the back. think I'm going to do it twice. Now, I could have glued that button on there, but because it is glass, I didn't want to distort it in any way, as a glue probably would show through it. So, yeah. All right, and then, like I said, I went through it twice, and then I will tie it off. And that's going to be it for this one. This is just a little like sewing notions one, really. And I think it's super cute using just some scraps I had around. In fact, a lot of these are just scraps. I'm going to show you some pictures of this one, and then we will get to the next assemblage. Mini assemblage number 76 also starts with a bit of sewing notions. You can see I've got that piece of, it's an old measuring tape, and y'all, I am going to futz forever with trying to find something to go with it. I had to cut out some of my searching. I ended up coming up with this piece of linen. It's like some kind of tableclothy type thing. It almost like a table runner, but it's smaller. I don't know what it was. It was just a small rectangle with lace on it. So I am again tearing it down, and yeah, because I like that little bit of lace on it along with the fraying. I don't know, it was finished but unfinished, and I really love that. So I'm kind of measuring this out, trying to decide. See, it had that Dean on there. It also has the Dritz on there, and I didn't want to kind of cut that in half. So I cut just past that 4-inch line. And I'm looking at this, and now, y'all, I'm going to speed this up quite a bit. I pulled out that little piece of book paper, and I knew I needed something else on behind this piece of measuring tape. Oh, wait, first I'm going to mess around with some washers that just happened to be in my stash, and I think I come up with that one that I had just a second ago, because I really liked how, yeah, the center hole kind of framed up that 3. So I'm going to bring out my bench block, and which is just a heavy steel block, and pound that down just a little bit to flatten it down so when it glues, it's flat. And yeah, I like that a lot. So now I've sped this up because I go through this manic phase of searching for some kind of book text or something to also include on here, and either behind it or behind the measuring tape. See, and I keep pulling out that one little piece of fabric, and not fabric, book paper, and I think that's what I'm going to end up using. But first, I'm going to play with all these other pieces. That's actually some scrapbook paper there. So yeah, this is just a mad sorting thing. And I've included this on here because I wanted y'all to see that some of these don't just like come together. There is a lot of picking up things, auditioning them, and coming back in to kind of make it work. So here I am finally tearing down that piece of book paper that I had initially, and I'm gonna lay it all down. And I'm sorry, I'm off screen there for a moment. And I grabbed my little dauber tool thing, and that has some, what do you call it? Walnut ink, distress ink on it. No, walnut stain, distress ink. That's what it is. And yeah, sorry, I'm doing this voiceover kind of early in the morning, and I'm not quite awake yet. My words are not completely with me. All right, so that worked perfect on here, and yeah, so I'm really liking that. That is really kind of perfect. So really, y'all, I'm going to just kind of pull these things together super quick. I'm going to put the Fabri-Tac on my paper since it's lightweight and that fabric is lightweight. That'll stick perfectly together, just like so. But then for the measuring tape and the washer, I'm going to use my E6000. I think I actually have to open a new one or get a different one here. I'd lost my washer, I think. I was like, okay, I'll find it in a minute. So I start to, no, maybe my E6000 is fine here. There's one of them where I run out of it or something. All right, so I'm going to line that up right on there. And I love this little assemblage, y'all. And y'all did too. I'm sharing this one because it's one of those ones that got a ton of likes on Instagram. And as long as I know that y'all want to see them, I'm sharing them. But that's why this next one will skip to number 88 because there wasn't much interest in them. All right, so that's glued down, and then from there I grab this embroidery floss. I put it on a needle and tied it in the back, and I am going to make a ton of French knots. So that is done by pulling your needle through, wrapping your thread a couple times around your needle, and then going back into your substrate in a slightly offset area from your original hole. So you pull through, then wrap your needle with the thread, go back into your substrate, holding your little knot thing and pull it through. So I'm going to show y'all one or two more of these. I can't remember if I speed this up or jump ahead. I think I speed it up so y'all could see all of what I do. But I'm going to make a ton of these, and I'm sorry I'm off camera. I tend to zoom in so y'all could see a little bit better of what I'm doing. And then, I can't keep focused because I'm so focused on my project that, yeah, it all goes awry. So I kept trying to decide with this one if I wanted to just put, 3 knots or 5 knots and as I worked, I was like, but I want all the knots on this one. It feels just right. And it's funny because on my last project I just showed y'all, I wanted all the color of that rust heavier at the bottom, but with these French knots, even though it feels a little bit heavier, I'm putting it at the top because they always feel like floating petals or dandelion fluff or clouds or something like that that's kind of floaty and ethereal. And so yeah, putting them at the top feels right for some reason. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I've got just a couple more I'm gonna add on to this, trying not to look at that, I got my thread all kinds of tangled up. And yep, so I'm going to go across the other side because it was feeling sparse over there. So I'm sorry that, if this is boring, but I wanted y'all to see how I did this. And with French knots, keep in mind that the more times you wrap your thread around your needle, the thicker and like chunkier your knots will be. So if you wrap it one time, it's kind of a smaller one. And the less thread that you use too, because with that embroidery floss, you can separate it down. So I'm going to tie this off, and I believe that is it for number 76. We'll skip ahead in just a second. I'm going to give you a few looks at this. This last one is a mini assemblage number 88 and was well liked on Instagram, so that's why I'm sharing at least most of it with you. So I already had this piece of some kind of rust-dyed or coffee dyed fabric. I think it's rust-dyed because of the marks on it, that I had done an image transfer with matte gel medium onto it of this vintage photo, and you saw it had like a little girl and probably her baby sister on it, and I decided I just wanted one of them, so I tore them apart, so I'll have the baby for something else, and then tore down the other edge. Now I could see little bits of some of the paper still kind of on this fabric, but I was not going to let it bother me too much. All right, so then I knew I wanted to back it with some not fabric. Why do I keep doing that? With some paper. So I found in my stash this piece of paper with a handwritten, it's like some kind of poem or something, and it's about what you want to teach children. Like if you teach children one thing, I did take a picture of it before I tore it down, y'all. So I have that to reference later so I can photocopy that or whatever. So, but I am tearing at this one edge just because I didn't want the blunt edge on that side, and even though the way I tore it, it's still fairly blunt, it gives it that tearing when I ink up the edges, gives it, a little bit of like fraying almost. I don't know how to what do you describe that torn edge? So that is about the size. And y'all, with my mini assemblages, I wanted to keep them under the size of $1. This was probably just over the size of $1, but that's okay. It's still, I'm going to count it as a mini assemblage. So I wanted to alter that handwritten paper, and I'm going to watercolor some flowers on it. Now, I cannot show you my process for watercoloring the flowers because I use a technique taught by Tiffany of Tiffany Simply Sharp that she teaches in Fodder School. I believe it was Fodder School 1, and yeah, somehow accidentally learned it. And since it is a class that she's selling, she'd rather I not like show how to do it. So I'm showing you my flowers as I complete them here, and then I will show you how I just paint on some of the leaves because I don't believe that's, yeah, I'll show you the leaves because that's not, I don't think it's big a deal. I think it's the flowers because the leaves are um, pretty kind of the same. Everybody kind of does leaves the same way, I think. I've seen that in several different classes, not just the one I accidentally learned because I have not taken Fodder School and somehow I saw somebody else's video who taught, yeah, it was a whole kerfluffle. So anyway, if you wanted to do something like this, just paint some flowers. Just take a big brush and put down some plops of petals or do like circly, rosy type flowers, however you want to do it. But I just wanted to quickly do it and I really like that method. So that's what I did. And so now I'm adding a little bit of green on the background of this. You know, this isn't something I've done with my mini assemblages. I don't know what compelled me to watercolor it. I think I was just feeling I think some flowery watercolors. I'm been all about the flowers lately. I recently planted some wildflowers in one of my flower beds, and all the gardenias are blooming here. I've got some in my kitchen right now. I actually need to replace them because I love the smell of a gardenia. So I am finishing this up, trying to make sure, keeping in mind that a lot of this is going to be hidden because I've got that strip of fabric with the girl on it that will cover up a lot of this. I just kind of want the flowers peeking around the edges. So I took a little bit of time and dried that. It took a while because it was super wet. And there is my girl. And before I glue her down, or am I going to glue her? No. Yeah, before I glue her down, I decided to go ahead and get that walnut stain distress ink out and ink up all the edges of this just to give like a definition of a frame around the edge of this. And I was trying to be careful, but in a couple places that brittle paper kind of tore just a little bit. It's okay. It's not a huge deal. It is brittle paper and that's what I wanted to use. So I'll ink this up and then I'll use my Fabri-Tac to glue down my girl. And then after this, a lot of this comes together a little bit more quickly, I think. No, well, I've got a few more steps. I decided to kind of throw a little bit of everything at this one. And it's great. I love her. And apparently y'all did too. If you were one of the many people that liked her on Instagram, I appreciate that. So I'll take a little bit of time once I get her kind of down, making sure that a lot of that fabric isn't going to flop. So I start to turn it, and I think I find another spot here in a second that also has to be glued. And if you can see it, I can see it. It's in the upper right corner. There's a little bit of the watercolor that apparently wasn't dry that got on my fabric, but it's okay. I'm going to be covering up right there. You see it, a little bit of green. So I'm bringing in one of my jars, yes, one of them, of mother of pearl buttons. And I knew I was going to put some on there, but I wasn't sure how many. And I already had this like violet lilac colored embroidery floss on a needle. So I was like, well, that kind of goes with some of the colors of those flowers. So that'll be perfect. So I've got 5 buttons here kind of lined down the side. And I am going to just stitch them straight on. I could have glued them first, but I didn't want any additional weight really on there. Not that the glue would add a ton of weight, but I was like, you know what, stitching will be fine. So this first one only has 2 buttons, so I am going to go through them twice. The other 4 buttons that I add all have 4 buttons, and so I stitch them on all in different ways. So this first one, I make an X. I can't even remember what the order is. I don't have it sitting in front of me. This next one I either do as a plus sign, not a plus sign, an equal sign. So it's like 2 lines, one above the other. Yeah. And then the next one I turn the button so it's still an X, but it's a plus sign, and then the last one, the lines will go like up and down, like just parallel to each other. I don't know why I wanted to do that. It just, I think because that first one was 2 buttons and the rest of them were 4, I needed it to be different and unique. So yeah, I'm just getting these all on and kind of just playing with it. There are other ways I could have taken that thread off of the button, like through the button and then up over the button onto the fabric and the paper. But I decided, yeah, no, we're going to keep it all within the button. And yeah. So once I get them all stitched, I decided I wanted that fabric elsewhere on this little image. So I'm going to do just some tiny, instead of French knots or X's or some of the other things, just these tiny little like seed stitches. I don't know if that's a technical term or not, but just little stitches to add that color kind of in that upper space. And with that, we're getting close to the end. So I will do several of these just to kind of fill that in, trying not to get those holes too close to each other because I don't really want to tear that fabric a whole lot more. Yeah, I'm finishing that up, and I will tie it off in the back in just a second. And then it'll be the last little touch, which is probably one of my favorite parts. But y'all, I don't know. I love everything about this. I love the watercolors. I love the buttons. I love the image transfer. So this was like so many of my mixed media skills. I'm just thrilled with it. So I tie this off real quick, and then I'm going to clean up my desk, get some of those buttons up, get some of the other things that are kind of sitting on it up. I do that off camera, and I'm going to come back in with my little plastic container of rusty safety pins. And y'all, I'm just going to run them through. I'm not going through the paper on this. I'm just going through the fabric. And I'm going to attach 3 safety pins, these larger ones. I think there's smaller ones and larger ones in that bucket. And then that'll be it. But y'all, so many good things on here. Rusty safety pins, watercolors, buttons, embroidery floss, image transfer. Just happy, happy, happy. Okay, guys, I'm going to give you a few more looks of this, and then that is it for this one. We are getting so close to the end of the 100-day project. If you like this, make sure to give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I will be back with more things later. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.